Everyone, I'm back here with Merchant of Venice. The most important scene, trial scene, act 4, scene 1. So in my last video, we have discussed when the Duke says Shylock that if you do not show mercy, then how do you expect that God will be merciful towards you? Then what was Shylock's answer? What Shylock says? That why should I need mercy when I have not done anything? I have not done anything wrong. So I have no fear of any punishment. So he says, then after that what he says, he brings the example of slave. The way he says, the way you all treat your slaves, you treat them as your donkeys or your dogs. You never be humble towards them. So if I tell them, you be humble, you behave properly with them, you give them proper food, the food you eat, you just choose them to make your son-in-law, just to marry your daughter, will you do? That time you will say no. They are our servants, so that is our decision. Similar way, it's my bond and I will do. This is my demand. My demand is that pound of flesh, so I will not. And that was, in a way, he wants to mean that the bond that Antonio signed already, so I am not doing anything wrong. So after that, what was Duke's reply? You see, from there we will start. Upon my power, I may dismiss this court, unless Bellario, a learned doctor, whom I have sent for to determine this, come here today. Then what Duke says that, see, I have that power. My position is that I can postpone this proceeding, this court. Now I can postpone till the learned doctor. Doctor is who? That lawyer, learned doctor, whose name is Bellario. He arrives here. Till that time, I will postpone the court. Now, Bellario, we know who is Bellario. Bellario is Portia's, we know, Portia's cousin. And we came to know in previous scene that Portia sends his one very honest servant, that is Balthazar, to Bellario, who stays in Padua. You remember who stays? He sends Portia sends Balthazar to bring the things like the lawyer costume and some papers from Bellario. So that person he is talking about, Duke is talking about. Now just after that, you see what Cellario says. My lord, here stays without a messenger with letters from the doctor. So here then Duke says that there is a messenger who is waiting outside, and he has just come from Padua, and he has brought a letter from the doctor, from the lawyer. Then Duke, bring us the letter, call the messenger. So he says, you just ask the messenger to come with the letter. Now there is a different scene. You see, Bassanio is talking to Antonio. Good cheers, Antonio. What man? Courage yet. Actually, Bassanio notices that Antonio has left all his hope. Antonio is just like waiting for the judgment, waiting for that final punishment, waiting for his own death, for his death. So he wants to encourage, he wants to give Antonio confidence. So he says, you should have courage. Why are you so upset? Then he says, the Jew shall have my flesh. Then blood, bones and all, ere thou shalt lose for me one drop of blood. So what he says, that Jew will have my flesh, I will give my flesh, my blood, my bone, and even my whole body, before I shall allow to even shed one drop of your blood. I will not. So Antonio's response, you see, I am a tainted wither of the flock, meetest for death. The weakest kind of fruit drops earliest to the ground, and so let me. You cannot better be employed, Bassanio, than to leave still and write mine epitaph. So what he says here? He says that I am like a diseased sheep. You see here, tainted wither, tainted whether is that diseased in a flock of sheep, that diseased or the sick ram. Okay, and he says that it is a practice that if in a flock of sheep one ram is sick, he should be removed from that group, because he through his disease the other sheep they can be infected. So here he says, for me test for death. So I am the most suitable person to accept to face the death. I am best suited for death. And then one more, what he says, the weakest kind of fruit drops earliest to the ground. That means he says, I am that weakest fruit which drops from a tree earliest, at the earliest, to the ground, which drops from the, if a fruit is very weak, means not a quality fruit, it is not good in quality, then it will drop from the tree. So my condition is like that, so let me die. And then what he says, this line you see here also, it shows how much love he has for his friend Bassanio. You see this line, you cannot better be employed, Bassanio, than to live still and write mine epitaph. So what he says here, Bassanio, you are the best person who will compose the words of grief. Where these words of grief to compose? On the, which will be inscribed on my tombstone or on my grave. So here it is written epitaph. Epitaph was the inscription or the write-up, what is written on the tombstone. So he says here, Antonio says, you are the best person to write those words of grief after my death, which will be inscribed on my tombstone. Then here we can understand that this Antonio, how till his last moment even he has some wish, and that wish he wants to be fulfilled by his bosom, his very close friend, his closest friend, his best friend Bassanio. Next, enter Nerissa, dressed dressed like a lawyer's clerk. So now Nerissa enters, and she is in a lawyer's costume, dress, habits. So, came you from Padua, from Bellerio? So, Duke is asking, are you coming from Padua? Are you coming from Bellerio? Then Nerissa, from both, my lord. That means yes, from both. Means I am from Padua, I am from Bellerio. Greets your grace. Bellerio greets your grace. Bellerio greets your grace means like Bellerio has greeted you. Then Bassanio. Why? Now Bassanio is looking at, now here we can see sometimes it is the conversation between Duke and Cesario, then Duke and Nerissa, then Duke, then Antonio and Bassanio, and now then Bassanio and Shylock. What Bassanio says, why dost thou whet thy knife so earnestly? So what Bassanio says, why are you sharpening your knife so eagerly with so much interest? Why? Then Shylock, what Shylock says, you see, to cut the forfeiture from that bankrupt there. That means I am ready to cut the penalty. Penalty means that pound of flesh from that bankrupt. Who is that bankrupt? Bankrupt is the Antonio. So he is ready. He is just ready to cut. Gratiano. Now here Gratiano is talking. And Gratiano, we know, he talks a lot, and he has little temperament, more temperament compared to Bassanio. He has that temper. So what he says, you see, not on thy soul, but on thy soul. S-O-L is soul, S-O-U-L soul. So here Gratiano is punning. He is using pun, S-O-L-E and S-O-U-L. Same pronunciation. So what the meaning I am telling? Hirtue, thou markest thy knife keen, but no metal can. No, not the hangman's axe bear half the knee. Keenness of thy sharp envy can no prayers pierce thee. Pierce thee. So what this Gratiano is telling, you hirtue means you cruel cruel Jew, and you are what sharpening this knife. You are not sharpening with your shoe sole, but with your soul. That means with your own spirit. Because he says, like, no knife has, like, we cannot take any knife which has that sharpening quality compared to your soul. That means you are envious. You are so much jealous. You are so much envious towards Antonio that your heart, your soul is so hard that cannot be compared with any metal. It is that much harder. It is the hardest. So you are sharpening it, this knife, with all your hatred which is there in your soul, and that cannot be compared with any metal, any hardest metal, harder in no comparison with any metal. It is so hard. It is so very hard it is. So then he says, can no here one line you see, of thy sharp envy. Thy sharp envy meaning, you understood? Thy sharp envy means like your that envious heart, your the way you are envious towards Antonio. Okay, then he says, can no prayers pierce thee? Pierce thee means even no, there is no way even we come and approach you, request you to show pity, nothing will work. Nothing will work. Nothing can help to soften your heart. Then Shylock, no. Shylock says, no, none that thou hast wit enough to make. Then what Shylock says? No, nothing is there which you are capable of making with your small intelligence can move me. Hast wit means your whatever wit, whatever intelligence you have, if you are trying to change my mind, then you are very, very wrong. Okay, so here one more thing what I just missed in the previous Gratiano, when he was talking, he says, you see, no, not the hangman's axe bear half the keenness. That means hangman's axe means the hangman is who? That executioner who execute the person who is who has got the final punishment. So he has axe. So even your this envious heart cannot be compared, the sharpness of your envious heart cannot be compared with the sharpness of the axe of the executioner, hangman's. Okay, so now what Shylock says, that I already told you, that Shylock says, though whatever intelligence you have and you are trying to change my mind, you cannot. So next, a very important speech of Gratiano is coming, so that I will say in the next video.